Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the October 1st, 2024 Public Board Meeting of the Halton District School Board. I would like to extend a special welcome to our guests, both in person and online. Yesterday, we acknowledged the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. While this commemoration occurs only once per year, I am very much aware of the HDSB's continuous efforts to listen, seek the true history, and move forward in a good way with the Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island. We are very much a learning community, and this means we also learn from our mistakes. I am humbled by the patience and friendship shown to us by the Indigenous communities we serve. Now on to the roll call. Vice Chair Oliver.
Good evening, everyone.
Trustee Ahmed.
Yes, please.
Trustee Amos.
Good evening, everyone.
Trustee Baxter.
Good evening.
Trustee Bryden.
Good evening.
Trustee Daniele.
Thank you. I am here.
Trustee Gray.
Hello.
Trustee Rocha.
Here.
Trustee Shuttleworth.
Good evening.
Trustee Zhang.
Good evening.
Student trustee Hu.
Good evening.
And student trustee Ochu.
Good evening.
Thank you. Director Ennis, please let us know which staff are in attendance this evening.
Thank you so much, Chair, and good evening, everyone. We have a full complement of staff here this evening to support tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Tonight, student trustee Ochu will be honoring the land.
We begin by acknowledging the land and our responsibility to care for and respect all that provides us with life. This land upon which HDSB is situated is on the ancestral treaty and title lands of the Anishinaabe Ojibwe Mississauga Nation, now known as the Mississaugas of the Credit. Mississauga territory, in the past and present, continues to host both Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. The HDSB is committed to the continuous knowledge building with respect to actions that address and resolve the ongoing impacts of colonialism. We do this by learning and understanding the true history, treaty obligations, duties, and responsibilities and Indigenous rights, while also maintaining mutually beneficial relationships and collectively respecting and caring for the land.
Thank you very much. Now we are up to item 1.3, approval of the agenda. Trustee Shuttleworth, would you make a motion to approve the agenda?
Sure.
Trustee Rocha, would you like to second this motion?
I do.
Are there any objections to approving the agenda? Seeing none, the agenda is approved by unanimous consent. Are there any declarations of possible conflict of interest for this evening's meeting? Seeing none, we are now up to item 2.0, delegations, presentations to the board. And we start our evening with the Inspire Awards. So I will pass the gavel to Trustees Shuttleworth and Gray, the co-chairs of the Inspire Awards, to preside over this evening's awards.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As we all know, an Inspire Award is given to individuals or groups that have formally or informally been recognized as going above and beyond to support our students in the Halton District School Board. Trustees are honored to be able to recognize these often unsung heroes that have been nominated by families, staff, students, volunteers, and the community. We are honored tonight to present 3 nominations in person, as well as 4 which will be recognized at schools later on this year. But we will start with the 3 here in the board this evening. And we will start with the Breakfast Program Student Volunteers at Aldershot School. Chair Collard will be presenting this on behalf of Trustee Bryden. So tonight we have Charlotte, Malcolm, Ash, Krishna from Aldershot School. These student volunteers of the Aldershot Breakfast Program go above and beyond every day, arriving early to ensure students have access to healthy food. They actively encourage participation, making sure students feel comfortable, and have helped turn the program into a fun part of the school community. Their efforts also extend to special breakfast events where they continue to foster inclusivity and engagement. Thanks to these dedicated volunteers, the breakfast program has grown into much more than just a food initiative. It has become a vibrant community event where students connect, share ideas, and offer to help. Their enthusiasm has inspired more students to get involved, turning the program into a gathering place that fosters collaboration and community spirit. This energy has even led to additional efforts like food drives and other community activities. The volunteers have shaped the program into a lasting, positive tradition that continues to enhance the culture at Aldershot. Congratulations to you all, and thank you so much. I know how important it is to the students. Next up on our list, we have Asmir Jabik from James W. Hill Public School. I don't know if I got it right. And Trustee Rocha will be presenting. Yeah. Mr. Jabik has gone above and beyond in fostering student success and well-being. I'm trying. Throughout the school year. From the welcoming open house, where he created a sense of community by encouraging family involvement and even crafting a class playlist, to his ongoing communication with parents and guardian, he has shown a deep commitment to his students. His supportive and attentive nature ensures that each child feels valued, and he takes time to address any concerns and care. A standout example of his dedication was his enthusiastic support of a student competing in an international sports competition, where he rallied the class to offer encouragement, making the student feel proud and appreciated. His culturally sensitive approach, shaped by his own experiences, has also allowed him to build strong connections with newcomer families, making everyone feel understood and welcomed. In addition to his role as teacher, he has been an inspiring soccer coach, encouraging teamwork and personal growth in his players. His positive influence is evident in how students like his oldest players are now mentoring younger peers and dedicating time to help others. His kindness and encouragement have not only motivated students to excel academically and athletically, but also inspired them to be kinder and more inclusive individuals. His commitment to building strong relationships and his positive impact on students' lives make him an inspiration for all. Congratulations. And finally, we are having Jennifer Galupe-Roos from Bruce Trail Public School. Her award will be presented to her by Trustee Gray on behalf of Trustee Daniele. So this will be presented later at the school. We also have 4 other Inspire Awards, which will be presented at the school. We have Franna Berry from Thomas A. Blakelock High School, Charlotte Lapierre from Dr. David R. Williams, Lisa Raspopov from Glenview Public School, and Juliet Rodriguez Heradia from Charles R. Bodwin Public School. Congratulations to all our award winners, and thank you so much for having that great spirit and contributing above and beyond to the Halton District School Board.
Before we move on to the next item on our agenda, I just want to let everyone know we have brand new microphones here tonight, and we are getting some feedback. So if that's not coming through very well online, that's why. And we are also having some camera issues because apparently something inadvertently went wrong when they installed the new cameras. So if you're using the app, you probably can't get in, but if you're watching live stream, you can see us. It's just a 30-second delay. So with that in mind, we will now move on to the student trustee report, and I would invite trustees Oshu and Hu to give us their report.
Thank you. Good evening, superintendents, trustees, staff, and viewers. I am Trustee Ochu.
I'm Trustee Ho.
And together we are bringing you our second exciting report for the 2024 to 2025 school year.
So first, talking about meeting with Mental Health and Well-Being Committee. Over the past month, we've been finalizing the Student Senate and Junior Council timelines, meeting with former senators, and writing emails to our HSC principals. Basically, we're getting our ducks in a row so we can start this month off with a bang. On September 12, 2024, Trustee Ochu and I met with the Mental Health and Well-Being Committee members Zainab Hussain, Rachel Brezahan, and Hannah Manel to discuss how we can better integrate mental health within our schools in an actionable manner this year. The idea of mental health or flex days was brought up, where 1 to 2 times a semester, students can engage in mental health activities at their school, such as self-guided lessons, taking time to study or relax, and nurse their mental health. It is a day where no new material would be taught, but class attendance would still be necessary in order to prevent students from taking advantage of this opportunity. Trustee Ochu and I have previously met with former student trustees within nearby school boards to discuss how these flex days were implemented within their schools, and are very excited to work with the HSB Mental Health and Wellbeing Advisory Committee in researching and executing this initiative this year.
On September 24th, Trustee Ho and I met with the former Senators Connor Gross and Sabrina Nadim in order to discuss the Equity Committee, the Human Rights Symposium, and Senate executive positions. There were many great ideas brought up, and one of the main takeaways was how important it is to set up our executive roles so Senate meetings can go as smoothly as possible. There was also ideas of visiting every school in the board's equity club and creating a report based on that, but that is still under careful consideration. The meeting dates for the Student Senate have been finalized and mostly occur on the first or second Wednesday of each month, starting in November and ending in June. After a meeting with many of our wonderful staff advisors on September 19th, we decided to increase the number of junior council meetings from 2 to 3. All the junior councils will be held virtually, and we're hoping we can provide a virtual option for our regular student senate meetings as well. Along with this, letters we sent out to principals and students to apply for Senate were finalized on September 22nd and were sent out the next day. We are receiving student Senate applications as we speak.
Our good friend Mark Clare at the Halton Youth Foundation offered us the opportunity to join him in the taping of Inspiring Youth TV via his contact booth outreach. Inspiring Youth TV is a platform dedicated to empowering young people through positive storytelling and educational content. It showcases the achievements and challenges faced by youth, featuring inspiring figures in the past, such as Malala Yousafzai, a Nobel Prize laureate advocating for girls' education, Greta Thunberg, a passionate climate activist, and Joshua Wong, a pro-democracy activist from Hong Kong. Through interviews and documentaries, this show encourages viewers to pursue their passions and make a difference within their communities. Trustee Ochu and I have accepted this opportunity and are excited to share all the great work the HSB has done with the HLF for improving the lives of our youth.
This past month has been filled with meetings in preparation for the Student Senate. Thankfully, because of our incredible community members like Connor, Sabrina, Zainab, Rachel, and Hannah, as well as our wonderful staff advisors, Trustee Ho and I have been able to make the necessary preparations for the Student Senate to go off without a hitch. And thanks to Mark Clare, the HSB will be able to spread the word of our work within the HLF to many of the youth within Ontario.
This concludes our student trustee report for October 1st board meeting. We look forward to this month's activities. Thank you.
Are there any questions for our student trustees this evening? Seeing none, I'd like to thank trustees Ochu and Ho for their presentation this evening. And it sounds like you're off to a roaring start, and just keep up the good work. Thank you so much. Our next item is 2.3, presentations, and I would like to welcome Principal Jones from Limehouse Public School to the microphone for item 2.3.1, a moment of gratitude.
Good evening, Chair Collard and trustees and Director Ennis and senior staff. It's my pleasure to have the opportunity to speak to you tonight. You may or may not know that on the overnight of February 24th earlier this year, we had a little fire at Limehouse. And the next morning, I and some of the other staff members came to the school to find that we were going to be out of our school for quite some time. And it was an overnight fire. Thankfully, no one was there in the evening and no one was hurt. So for that, we're grateful. But I wanted to come tonight and just share some more gratitude, because it was a tremendous effort on many people's parts to get our school back to the state that we're in today, which is back and better than ever. So from the moment the fire alarms went to the time that the firefighters seemed to have it all under control was only 23 minutes. But our boiler room was aflame, and that wasn't the worst part. The oil smoke permeated the whole school, and we pretty much lost everything. If it wasn't a hard surface, we lost it. If it was a book, a block, a pillow, any soft materials of any kind, it was lost. If it was materials that are in the classroom for learning, like scissors, glue, markers, any of that stuff, it was all just deemed unsavable and lost. We had to move from our school quickly. We had sort of one day to reset, and we moved to Mackenzie Smith Bennett School in Acton, which thankfully had some room for us to continue our teaching and learning. But we left our school with practically nothing. And I wanted to say how grateful I am to my own staff for their ability to keep kids happy, healthy, and safe and learning with nothing, really. I am grateful to Principal Jeff Chason, excuse me. I'm grateful to him for being a gracious host, and he put his staff on alert, telling them that sort of whatever we needed, he would be happy to provide. So as a gracious host, we're grateful to him, and his Vice Principal, Sarah Conatero, his Secretary, Tanya Spill, Senior Administrative Assistant, excuse me, and his certs in the building were also super generous with their time and effort to acquire the things that we needed to start with the teaching and learning. It was a superhero effort on the part of my teachers, but the support staff as well. We were without our senior secretary, who was off on leave, so my administrative assistant, who's only half-time, stepped into the role of senior administrative assistant and took on the Herculean task of keeping our school running by remote control, not even being in our building. So making sure that all the parents had all the communications that they needed, but keeping our kids, safe and on track with where they were coming and going, those sorts of things. Our staff really gave of themselves to make sure that the students never really felt any real disruption. Obviously, it was what's happening, what's going on, but they were happy to be in school still learning, because it was questionable for a little while whether we would be able to stay. So my gratitude to my staff is sort of immeasurable, because they kept it going for the students of Limehouse. But it goes even farther beyond that. Our super supportive school council leapt into action and started to get our community involved in acquiring things that we might need just for the adventure of being in another school, but also for the return to our school, because no classroom library survived, and no games, no puzzles, no things like that survived. So our community donated those things from their homes as well as made cash donations. So it was an organization from our school council that was immediately supportive. One of our parents, Mrs. Goodlett, she had made some connections to some of our community partners like Scholastic or Indigo, and got us some sizable grants so that we could restore some of the classroom library materials that were lost. Our community reaches out to Trustee Gray, who's a superhero in my mind as well, because she put herself into action and came to our rescue by connecting us with the retired teachers of Halton, who came out personally. Some of them came out personally to see the school, having worked there before, or just wanting to see for themselves the action that was underway. So I'm grateful to Trustee Gray and her friends at Retired Teachers of Halton and Peel. The Halton Learning Foundation was also a connection that she made for us, because we're receiving offers of cash donations, but we weren't in a position to start with the paperwork of writing tax receipts and things like that. So Halton Learning Foundation needs to be credited as well for becoming a partner of ours to collect our donations and use their network of donors and people to help us with a financial restoration, which we're receiving, and we're about to prioritize more learning materials that the community has donated. I can't say enough again about the time at Mackenzie Smith Bennett, because we were their guests for 8 weeks. One of them was March break, but for 8 weeks we were their guests. And the teachers and staff, the teachers, especially started to feel for our staff, because it's very difficult to try doing any teaching and learning without your assets in the classroom. So they were extremely generous, and we're grateful for them all along the way. The Wastewise of Halton Hills was another gracious partner. They opened their doors and said whatever we sort of needed, we could have. They try to do some sales of the things that they have, but they were super generous with our staff. The Halton Hills Christian School needs to be shouted out, because our neighbors around the way heard about our plight, and they came to lend their support, as well as a small financial contribution from their community, so we're grateful from them. Other community partners like the Flag Shop of London put our flags back in the school because they were lost. We have a grant from the Royal Bank of Canada, and some volunteers from the Royal Bank of Canada came out and did some outdoor education, partnering with us with our outdoor education team. I need to shout out Heather behind me in the communications department, and Jason for telling all the families all the things that I was too busy to tell them myself. They had the messaging ready to go, and my name was signed to things, and it was perfect messaging, exactly what I wanted to say, so I'm grateful to them. The facilities department, from Ian Gaudette to Terry Janik, who were on the scene right away to give us all the support that they could provide, getting us in touch with Paul's Restoration, which is third-party contractors, restored our school with supersonic speed as far as I'm concerned. 8 weeks and we were back in. It was amazing to watch them do their thing. Matt Underhill, the insurance adjuster, who was nothing but gracious and understanding as we walked the building, to say, we lost this, we lost that, we lost the third. He was very helpful. The purchasing department, wherever, I don't know if anyone from purchasing is around, but Dave Bennett, Heather Fiorelli, and Kristen Bryant. A tremendous amount of work. Imagine every little thing that a school needs to have in its building. They were on deck to order that stuff, source it, find it, working with Superintendent Nagoy over here to get the finances all done is just a tremendous, tremendous effort. The program department, the elementary program department, was super helpful, getting us some of the staff resources back on the shelves so that the teachers could have their teacher resources so they could continue with the best learning. The Indigenous Education Department, with Tamara Phillips and Christine Vanderwall under Superintendent Echeverria, they sent all the materials that we lost, but the IPLs came to work with our kids so that my staff could actually step aside and do some of the receiving of the materials, sorting of the materials, all those things that you have to do before school even starts. We had to do that all over again. So I need to thank my own superintendent, Superintendent Connor, I know is not here with us tonight, but she was on deck immediately working with Associate Director Salmini and Director Ennis to put a plan together so that we could be back in school just a few short days later, working remotely at MSB. A transportation plan was put in place to have all our kids move from Limehouse every day. It was like a little field trip to MSB every day and back. So tremendous amount of efforts in the transportation department, and we're grateful for the help of senior team members, and I'm grateful to everyone who helped, because Limehouse is back and better than ever, and I encourage you all to come visit us up there in Halton Hills. Thank you so much.
Before you leave, I think you left someone out. Thank you very much for all of your work in getting Limehouse open and better than it ever was. And I would love to come and visit. Thank you. Thank you. Trustee Gray.
Yes, thank you very much. As you can see from this moment of gratitude or moments of gratitude, there's almost no department in this board that didn't step up and come to the rescue and help in so many different ways. I had the privilege of walking the school shortly after and seeing the devastating loss as being a former teacher and knowing what it means to have my own set of resources and seeing these teachers losing all of their resources. It really was heartfelt, and to know just exactly what the teachers were facing. But as you have said so well, Principal Jones, the teachers stepped up and made the best that they could do for our students. And it's a real kudo, again, to echo Chair Collard's words, a real kudo to you, Principal Jones, for all of your leadership, and to the entire community who also rallied around you. Nothing like a good old community up in the hills to step forward. So thank you so very much for sharing this tonight. And I hope that this is one in a series of moments of gratitude that we can share in our board as days go on, but not on the same topic of a devastating fire. Thank you.
And our next presentation is 2.3.2, the Math Achievement Plan, given by Superintendent Frankovich.
Good evening, Chair Collard, Vice Chair Oliver, and all trustees. We wanted to take this opportunity to fill you in on some of the work that has been going on as part of our Math Achievement Action Plan. This is our second year working closely with the Ministry of Education in the area of math. As part of this work, we are encouraged by our ministry partners to share updates with our Board of Trustees, and we are happy to do so tonight. An important component of this work involves improving achievement in our priority schools as identified by the ministry in partnership with our team. In partnership with the ministry, we are focusing on the use of our 2 math facilitators to support educators in all of our priority schools. As you know, math continues to be an area of focus for the ministry, and we value the partnership that we have with the ministry's math lead, Sean Braden. We have Lori Reed joining us tonight. Lori is our system principal for K-8 school programs. She has been an integral part of this work, bringing our team together to ensure that the mathematics support being provided to all of our educators in our priority schools in the areas of ensuring curriculum implementation, ongoing professional learning, and knowing the mathematics learner so that we are responsive in our response to the needs throughout the system in partnership with our student services department. So with that, I will turn it over to Lori, and she's going to walk you through a little bit of the work of our math facilitators in supporting our priority schools.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to share some of the math work that we're excited to talk with you about tonight. As Superintendent Frankovich mentioned, it is the second year of this initiative, this ministry initiative, last year being the initial year. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you. As we delve into our work, I'd like to talk with you a little bit about how it's structured. The ministry requirements include our response to meaningful and measurable key performance indicators, which we'll talk about in a moment. We look at strategies at all levels, the board, school, and classroom level, and we do this in order to ensure accountability for math academic achievement. So we call the Math Achievement Action Plan MAP. It outlines all of the considerations for our board, and it connects to to specific measures which are indicated in the document Taking Action in Mathematics. So there are priority actions, and what you're looking at now are the 3 key priority actions. So each of those addresses the large scale portions of the initiative, and then within each one of those actions, priority actions, are key performance indicators. So the first priority action is really about the fidelity of the curriculum, the implementation, use of instructional assessment practices, and then how we go about ensuring and enhancing student achievement. That takes us into our work around engaging the ongoing learning to strengthen mathematics content knowledge for teaching. We really want our students to love math, to engage in math, and to view themselves as mathematicians. And so part of that includes a responsive and relevant approach to that learning, including interventions, looking at the kind of mathematical tasks we're bringing to our students, and building the pedagogy of our instructional leaders across the system, specifically with a focus on teachers in those priority buildings. So part of our work has been coming together as a committee or a group. And so Superintendent Frankovich is our lead, and together with him, we meet regularly with the ministry's math action team. And that's a provincial group or meeting that we come together with to have conversations and dialogue about what we're doing in the sense of the implementation of math in our district, to hear about what other provinces, what other districts within the province are doing, and to really strategize about what's working and where we see some problems of practice that we can work through together. So on a monthly basis, we also attend math content webinars that are led by ministry education officers, and those really target grades 3, 6, and 9 math content. Additionally, we meet in one-on-one meetings with the student achievement officers, as well as with our math action lead and lead team. And those are great opportunities for us to really continually engage in the dialogue about math in our district and what it looks like at all levels, board, school, and classroom. So we do have 3 formal reporting periods that we address throughout the year. And as we formulate our key performance indicators that are related to those priorities that we looked at earlier, we look at how we will measure our success with those key performance indicators, and we indicate those within those formal reporting periods. We work alongside our research department who helps us to gather that data, and then we continually reflect on our successes as well as what our next steps can be in math to ensure that we're really addressing capacity building with our teachers across the district and igniting sort of that love for math with our students and seeing that growth and progress. So as part of this initiative, we did receive funding last year as well as this year for the implementation of the MAP plan, and that included 2 full-time school math facilitators who started with us last year, and fortunately they continue with us this year going forward. So that has been a really wonderful opportunity for those math facilitators to build connections within schools, to build connections with administrators in buildings, and to support both the ministry and board direction and goals within each of those buildings, really supporting those grade 3, 6, and 9 educators and the students within. So the model is structured in 4-week blocks at each of the priority schools, and I'll talk about the priority schools in a moment. And so we've structured it in a way that the math facilitator can be a part of that priority school for a 4-week block at each term or semester, which offers that continuity of support. And it's also been really great because the continuity has continued from the partnerships that were built last year. So they are it does include formal coaching partnerships with classroom educators for each block, and with a focus, though, on those priority identified grades. So we've got a co-planning and co-teaching model in the classroom. It is a gradual release model, so the math facilitator will work with the classroom teacher. They'll do some modeling. They'll also work with students, and then they'll look at assessment practices and really zone in on specific focus areas that will benefit students and student learning. And so throughout that process, we're collecting evidence of student learning, both formal and informal, to really understand and be responsive to their learning needs. So we do provide supplementary in-school leadership as well. And that supports the work with our educators as well as administrators. That includes things like lead professional learning. We've got our learning resource teachers going into classrooms as well to do coaching in schools outside of the priority schools. And that way we've been able to extend our support across as much of the district as we are able to. The impact of instructional coaching is huge. The model promotes the collaborative analysis of student work. So as we gather information about where students are through things like common task, we can then take that student work and analyze it. And when we do that collaboratively, it gives us a lot of information about what students are doing well and where we may need to focus our attention in order to continue to improve some of the skill building that needs to happen. We model high impact instructional practices. So it's a document called HIP. It was released by the ministry, and it is both elementary and secondary. So our math facilitators as well as our instructional program leaders bring that into our schools as part of the responsive instruction that really takes us into understanding students. So this little quote, it's a Westman quote, which is really related to a lot of the work of John Hattie, reminds us that coaching really has those long-term sort of investment yields, that when we work in beneficial partnerships with both teachers and administrators, and we really implement research-based practices, that we can see great results in student achievement. So here are our priority schools. You can see listed our grade 3, 6, and 9 schools from last year, and they're provided to you. They are actually identified to us by the ministry. We do work directly with that team in order to have discussions about possible changes and how we can best support our district. So you can see in the 24-25 school year that we've started that some schools have been added by the ministry, and we've also nominated some schools to be included, one of which is MM Robinson Secondary. Last year, Acton was part of the grouping, but MM is one of the, we've got 2 feeder schools that actually connect directly with MM Robinson, and we've worked really strategically to create partnerships across panels, so elementary to secondary, so that we can have that continuity of learning as students move from the intermediate into the secondary years. So in order to support with the meaningful and measurable key performance indicators, we are considering a number of ways of gathering data, and that's both formal and informal. And you can see here that we're looking at things like student attitude, achievement, attendance data, which is really important. We use formal data like EQAO scores, as well as school reporting, school-based data. We involve parents and family voice because we want to have that connection, partners in learning. We've used information from Have Your Say as feedback, and we've been sharing with our school administrators as well to ensure that we know what they need so that we can use that information to continue the learning that we're providing out to their schools. Educator voice as well as administrator voices collected in board-wide, entire district-wide surveys that capture the work of all math teachers in our district, and that survey last year was generated twice, and we were able to take that information at the end of last year to help us to plan forward. We will be administering an additional survey this fall, and then again one in the later part of this spring, so that we can have an understanding from the voices of our parents, educators, and administrators about their comfort and confidence in math. So that is a pretty, general overview of the work. We certainly have a lot of deep work and very specific work that's going on with our math facilitators and with our IPLs and through our math lead team. But that gives you a general overview. So if there's any questions that you may like to ask, we'd be happy to answer them for you.
Trustee Gray.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. I was really happy on slide 9 to see the indication that parents and family voice are involved here. And I know that it indicates here that there's family surveys and feedback, but do we ever reach out to parents to provide them with resources or suggestions as to how they can support their student? And do the parents, are they aware of this special programming in these priority schools, and I guess the movement forward as different measures are taken? Are they ever kept up to date through the year? I think there's 3 or 4 different reporting times, so I'm wondering what the interface back and forth with parents are. I really see parents as being the third part of a triangle between the student, the school, and in the support of success. So just wondering if you could comment on that, please.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. So we gather parent voice in a variety of ways. We do have parent engagement resources available. So we have a couple of different digital tools that are available from which we are able to gather data. So we'll start with that, one of which is Knowledge Hook, which we've purchased through the Digital Math Fund for grades 1 through 10. Which is being used in the schools. We've run a number of sessions already this year to introduce Knowledge Hook and to refresh people's knowledge of Knowledge Hook as well, for teachers, for new experienced teachers, new teachers, as well as for administrators. And that really provides parents with some insight into what students are working on. It does actually provide us with some information as well that parents can generate to us. We do hope to extend that gathering of data through Knowledge Hook this year. We're engaging much more deeply with that tool and feel that it could be a really good way to gather some of that data. Another digital resource that we have in place in the district is MathUp. And that tool provides us with the opportunity to share with families as well. There are family pieces that can be sent home to really help families to understand what it is we're working on in classrooms that's directly related to the curriculum and the grade level. In terms of additional sharing, some of our schools have engaged in things like Family Math Night, which we do support folks with when they're planning those evenings and getting some of that scheduling out. We happen to be right in the process of developing what's called a lunchbox, which is actually a short, curated opportunity for folks to access within their building. We've got a number of them already developed, but one that's underway happens to be about Family Math Night, so that educators in schools can have some of the benefit of that already curated sort of information. We do provide also a newsletter on a regular basis, which is called Math Moments. And so that goes out to all of our educators as well as our administrators, which helps to identify really strong math practice, which we encourage can be shared with families. So it's definitely an area that will continue to deepen and extend as we continue into this second year of the MAP action plan. But I agree with you, certainly a rich source of information, and we do want our parents to be our partners in learning in the area of math. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Oliver.
Thank you very much for this presentation. I'm very pleased to see such concerted effort in our system and with support of the ministry in supporting our educators and therefore student learning and achievement in this area. You indicated that the priority schools are identified by the Ministry of Education, and I'm wondering I'm presuming there's some criteria that they use. And I'm wondering how long do the schools stay on that list of priority schools? And is there a goal to eventually, move through the system so that every school benefits from such focused attention and support?
Great question. Also, thank you. It is our second year in this initiative. So last year being our first year, we were really navigating this whole process as a province. And so having had the opportunity last year to work through the key performance indicators and through the whole structure of MAP, we learned a lot about how we can, take that information and roll it forward. So the schools, although I don't have specific criteria that the ministry has shared with us that would suggest how they've selected those schools, a lot of it rests with, formal data. So EQAO, for example, and report card data. We also have the opportunity, though, to have a conversation with that team and to share with them our thinking on, additional opportunities for support. So we've been able to be somewhat creative with the plan for this year and added some additional schools. As for sharing across the district, I'm not sure that that's, thinking has been fully formulated yet. I'm sure that it's something that will evolve over time. But what we have done is really looked at how we can best serve the district from the point of view of those schools who have not been identified as priority schools yet or by the ministry through resources such as our learning resource teachers, which actually do coaching in math as part of their part of the work that they do. And we've seen a lot of benefit in that work. So we've been strategic in those allocations and in how we are moving support through our district. We've also got math leads from schools in place, which the instructional program leaders work directly with those math leads. And then we do call our administrators together in lots of opportunities to discuss how we can best implement ministry priorities and ministry resources, the curriculum, and then additional and supplementary resources in every building. So the math surveys do actually give us a bit of an overview of the whole district, which is wonderful because it's sent out to every single math teacher across our whole board, and that gives us important and relevant information about where we are with math planning, implementation, and where we may need to include additional or extended support as we move forward.
May follow up.
Just one point of clarification. The monthly grade 3, 6, and 9 math content webinars, are they attended by all grade 6, 9 math educators, or?
They're not. Thank you for the question. So those specific ministry opportunities are for the math lead team, and it is represented provincially. So each district will send their team or, to build learning. And then from there, we will share and disseminate that learning in our professional development opportunities with our math facilitators. And, there continues to be a focus that is shared with us at those opportunities. And we're also learning from each other's experiences, which has been very powerful because it helps us to refine our direction going forward.
Thank you. Trustee Bryden.
Thank you. I like the Westman quote, and one of the things it talks about is research-based best practices. It struck me, it leaped out that all of the support being provided was in grade 3, 6, and 9, which happened to be the years that EQAO assessment is done. Is there any research-based practice to support intervention at these particular points in time? Or is this just we're trying to get better test scores to look good? Is there a reason for intervention at this particular point in time?
Yes. So I would say, grade 3, grade 6, and grade 9 are they're culminating, opportunity where we have, so the curriculum builds on itself right from kindergarten all the way through grade 3 and all the way through grade 12. And so by those touch points in grade 3, 6, and 9, we have had the opportunity to build skills to that point, which we believe can really support as we move forward from like the primary division into the junior division into the intermediate division. And so having that support in place in those areas will certainly improve, we hope, our EQAO scores, but also we believe that those are developmental points where our math facilitators can really make a difference in terms of building some lateral capacity with our teaching teams that can then further be shared right across that division. So our math facilitators do work directly with 3, 6, and 9, but they also provide opportunities like lunch and learns and further support that's less formal for some of our other grade level teaching partners. So I'm not sure if there's anything to add to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, Trustee Shuttleworth.
Yeah, Mark was okay too. So thank you, through you, Chair. So I have a question about the chart or the table. I think it's slide 8. So when we look at the schools that were priority schools for 2023-24, and then in 24 and 25, so some have gone away and some have been added. So if they have left, so for example, for grade 3, Harrison was a priority school for 2023-24, but is no longer a priority school for 24-25. You said you weren't sure where the measures were coming from. Mainly, you said from formal diagnosis, but is that to signal that Harrison did a good job of trying to move forward because they're no longer on the list? And also then, when we look at the schools that are on the list for both of them, does that mean there needs to be more intensive support at those schools because they don't seem to be, I don't know, they're still on the priority school list?
So thank you for the question. Yes, in some cases, and although we're not entirely privy to the decision making that the ministry engages in those conversations, where a school has demonstrated growth in those EQAO scores, it may be that they have made the decision to change the allocation in terms of the priority school. In some cases, we've got smaller schools where we've had sufficient support to really get things moving and on the way, where we see some progress. And I am curious as we kind of continue the conversation and start to unpack the EQAO data in a little more depth to see where all the progress has landed with each of the schools. But part of this is also the continued partnerships that we believe will continue to move those schools and that work forward. So in some cases, we've been able to creatively schedule so that we're meeting the needs of those schools, and the continuation of the learning is underway, where other schools are new and they'll be beginning at sort of that starting stage. So we have the 2 math facilitators, and so we've done our best to provide the schools with as much support as we can, given the allocation that's been funded. Is there an extension to your question that I can answer?
No. So what I'm wondering is for those schools. So again, I look here in grade 3, Harrison was there for 23-24, and is no longer there for 24-25. For grade 6. Centennial was there for 23-24 and not 24-25. So do we see those as schools that have progressed and could be drawn on as a model for success because they're no longer considered a priority school, which to me makes me think they've had success or achieved better scores?
We're always looking for models of success. I would say those schools could certainly contribute to the conversation about the collaborative work that has occurred between the facilitator, the administrator, the team that's moved student learning forward to the point where the ministry has made the decision to allow them to continue on their own without that support, for sure. And so that becomes part of the networked learning that can continue in the math lead sessions, at PD sessions, and at within some of the partnerships that we're creating across the district. Yes, we have added a few schools this year, and the ministry has flagged a couple of new schools as well, and that's related, I think, largely to the scores, the EQAO scores. In some cases, we've nominated a school because we felt it was appropriate to offer additional support based on their specific school needs and the plans that they had in place, and where we felt we could really make a difference in terms of how we were going to move them forward and through those partnerships.
So, and this is just a quick technical question. So with that, in the 24-25, we've got italics and stars.
Yeah.
So it says at the bottom, star italics, new priority school allocation. Is that some of them are from the board and some of them from the ministry?
Mm-hmm. So the ministry has flagged some of these schools as new priority schools, and we have made the request to add schools where we have been able to. We've maximized our resources in order to try to extend that opportunity to a couple of new schools. So in some cases, we were able to compress our grade 3 and our grade 6 blocks in small schools so that we could extend some of the time that we had within the schedule of the math facilitator to additional schools. So Montclair, as an example, being one of those schools. The ministry reviewed the proposal and then supported our thinking and our scheduling on that.
Thank you. Trustee Baxter.
Thank you. Through the chair, I was just wondering, how will trustees remain informed about progress on this initiative? Will we see the MAP reports or high-level summaries of the KPIs, or what will we see going forward? Thank you.
Our next update will be when we come to board in November with our EQAO presentation. That coincides with our first formal report to the ministry, and we'll be able to provide further update at that time, because that's, like I said, it's our presentation to board is shortly after submission of our first formal report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other speakers, thank you very much for your very informative and good news report. I like to see that the schools that have been listed as priorities are gaining from being on that list, and hopefully we will see leaps and bounds of success in the next few years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Collard. If I can just add one thing while I have Principal Reed here. There was a spring phone call with Sean Braden, our ministry math lead, and he was reaching out just to find out a little bit about our math symposium and how we were pulling that off. He said, can I put you in touch with a board who's inquiring about running a math symposium? And then he found out that ours was being run on a Saturday, and he commented on how that would be a non-starter for the board that was inquiring, because they wondered how we were going to release so many teachers during the day, during the work week. And when he found out ours was a Saturday, he said, how am I not surprised by that? And he complimented the team and the engagement of our team. And I think you saw that tonight with the presentation. So thank you, Lori, and thank you to our team.
Bravo and kudos to you, Lori.
Thank you very much.
The final presentation on this evening's agenda is 2.3.3, Student Wellbeing and Mental Health. Superintendent Barnes and your team, please make your way up to the presentation desk.
Good evening, Chair Collard. I'm just going to make a few comments and introductions from over here. I'd like to introduce our research officer on the left, Maria Glizik, our mental health lead in the middle, Michelle Bates, and our new system vice principal for student wellbeing and mental health, Linda Delapass. Every school board has a 3-year mental health strategy and a yearly mental action plan. Our plan identifies priorities to support student mental health in alignment with our multi-year plan. Tonight, we are showing results of the mental health promotion and whole class learning, social emotional learning. The results from these studies were conducted last year, and the focus tonight is sharing some results from elementary. Going forward, we do have a commitment to do a bit of a study with a secondary focus this year. And once again, we're really grateful for the partnership we have with the research department as directed by the Ministry of Education to conduct these studies. So I'm going to turn it over to Michelle Bates.
Thank you. See, when I turned it on and it went red, I was like, oh, that's not working. But you saved me. Thank you. Okay, good evening, everyone. So we have some slides prepared that are available to you. Apologies in advance if we're moving a little quickly. You can certainly follow up with us. You can ask us some questions, and there are some speaker notes attached to some of the slides. This overview is sharing with you that together with the board's research department, we have conducted a number of research and evaluation projects related to the mental health strategy and the yearly action plan. Tonight, we're coming to share with you two particular results. Our focus this evening is sharing around whole class mental health and well-being learning. As you heard from Superintendent Barnes, this is very much aligned with the current multi-year plan and with our mental health strategy. In our strategy, we have articulated in this first area what some of the priorities are. I would just like to acknowledge, you heard earlier from our student trustees about our youth advisory committee to the mental health strategy, who have, they're just amazing human beings, I'll just say that. And last year, they developed, planned and offered forums to invite students to give input into the yearly action plan for this coming year. And overwhelmingly, the students were saying they want to have awareness, knowledge, and skills related to their well-being. That was overwhelming. And I think that's really important context as we talk about tonight's sharing and results. This is just an overview slide. Sometimes when we talk about whole class learning, we can get a little overwhelmed about what that might look like. Here are some examples. These are often shared in our PD learnings with teachers. It's a way to acknowledge, it's a way to validate, it's a way to encourage that our teachers are already providing mental health and well-being learning and instruction in a variety of formats. We know that social emotional learning is central to well-being and central to achievement. There's long-standing research, multiple studies that speak to the positive outcomes for young people. One of the things that's really important and a distinction that we make along with School Mental Health Ontario is the need for explicit instruction, learning, and practice. It used to be that before we thought if we just kind of said to people, well, just be kind, just talk nicely, just take a deep breath, that people would learn to do those things. And we know now that that is not adequate nor suitable for everybody. So it's explicit, it's practice, and it's regular. It has to be ongoing to really help young people to develop these skills. Now I'll turn it over to Maria.
Good evening. We selected here to showcase the results of the three specific studies that were conducted last year on the topic of whole class mental health and well-being learning. The first study was conducted in 3 different schools, and it was a case study for each school, and in these particular schools, it was not only at the classroom level, but the learning about mental health and well-being was happening at the school level. We spoke with students, with teachers, with child and youth counselors and administrators in those schools. Then the second study was of 16 teachers from 13 different schools that were implementing only in their classroom, not at the school, at a whole school level, a particular program that was called Second Step, which they were trained in by the Student Wellbeing Department. And then the results of the third study were survey results from check-ins with elementary administrators, their feedback on whole class learning in their schools. Although we have detailed reports for each of these studies, we're just going to highlight some of the findings in this presentation. So when speaking with students, they've expressed multiple benefits of whole class learning for them and their peers. Most importantly, provided students with tools and strategies to better understand their emotions, but to also solve problems, as well as to help those around them. It also provided a more cohesive school environment and classroom environment. It provided opportunities for students to engage in circle time, for example, or to connect with other students, and to also know how to seek help and where to seek help when needed, but also how to help others around them. In speaking with teachers and CYCs, we found very similar results. They were able to actually observe positive changes in student behavior. These classes or these instructions provided students with skills to talk about their mental health and well-being. They noticed a decrease in anxiety, in conflict, improvement in problem-solving behaviors. And it also allowed students to express not only their emotions, but express the need to seek mental health, to seek support for mental health and well-being when needed. Very importantly, it reduced stigma around mental health and well-being, and it also gave voices to students who usually do not speak in class or who are usually not seen as being very engaged in learning. In speaking with teachers from additional 13 schools, which is on the next slide, as a focus group discussion, we found, again, very similar topics or very similar themes. With this material, students were able to relate to topics and really wanted to engage in discussions. They were able to repair situations without teachers' involvement, which was really important. And it also provided students, they observed, it provided students permission to express emotions and to discuss topics other than the regular curricular material. It equipped students with helpful strategies, taught them how to reflect and problem solve, which is just overall global 21st century skills, as they're called. It also provided common language throughout school when speaking about mental health, well-being, or solving problems, and it also normalized mental health and well-being challenges. We also saw that students were putting Second Step into cross-curricular learning, so it was not only applying to mental health and well-being, but also they were able to integrate it into other curricular materials. And the results of our third study come from the elementary principal survey. We had about 70% of elementary principals who actually responded to this survey. The majority of them were doing some kind of whole class learning in their schools, but then there were some principals who were not doing any or were just starting on this journey. We asked principals how high of an importance mental health and well-being learning was in their schools, and as you can see, the majority of principals expressed that it was very high on their list of priorities. And when we asked them what are some of the conditions that are necessary to be in place in order to successfully implement whole class learning, you can see that 94% of them responded that was collaboration with staff from the Student Wellbeing Department, such as CYCs and IPL or other staff. This was followed by school culture, or the belief that mental health and well-being promotion was important, and then followed by concerns about mental health and well-being for students, and also teacher willingness and comfort level in delivering instruction was very important. We then asked principals who is delivering whole class learning in their schools, and number one, people doing this were homeroom teachers, which was not surprising, but it was followed by a child and youth counselor or a collaboration between a teacher and CYC. Lastly, we asked them what kind of resources they use for whole class learning about mental health and well-being. And as you can see, a program called Second Step that was actually supported by the Student Wellbeing Department was selected by the majority of the principals, and it was followed by other resources provided by the Student Wellbeing Department, as well as resources used by CYCs and individual teacher resources. Lastly, but not the least, we also asked principals what kind of advice they would give to their colleagues who are just starting on this journey or who haven't started but are thinking of implementing whole class learning. And they said that they really have to prioritize it. They have to dedicate specific time and resources and engage their staff in delivering whole class learning. Everybody who is doing or starting this journey said that it's definitely worthwhile. It's a long-term investment, and they just have to kind of get it started, and they will see the benefits of it. And that would conclude our presentation for tonight.
Thank you. We do have a speaker, Vice Chair Oliver.
Thank you very much for this presentation. Every year I follow the student trustee elections, and all the candidates stress the importance of mental health and well-being for themselves and for their peers. And I know certainly that's a priority for our student trustees today. And for the Senate dedicates their time and space to work on mental health, well-being and awareness for their peers. I also really appreciate that schools are often the very first place where students are, can come forward to somebody with their issues, where they may be identified as having mental health concerns. And our staff are really the frontline workers who support these students and need to be able to make connections for them. So it's not surprising that we see our homeroom teachers really filling the role of a mental health specialist in this case. And so I really respect the work that you do. I value the work that you do. And I recognize the importance of resources that you require to support you as you work with staff and students. My question is, I'm wondering about what kind of collaboration, maybe this is a question for Superintendent Barnes, what kind of support and collaboration does HDSB receive from our community mental health partners, public health, etc., in supporting and providing the resources? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Chair Oliver. We're really happy the direction the Ministry of Education has given with PPM 169, and it outlines a number of external partnerships that boards are asked to map out. So one of the things that we've been doing since last spring is meeting with our external agency partners, and there's a protocol called Right Time, Right Care, which sort of streamlines the pathway students receive to get assistance. I wanted to emphasize that what we mentioned earlier about the mental health promotion is so important that we have all three tiers covered, and our teachers and other professionals are doing very well with the upstream work at tier 1. But then as we get to tier 2 and 3, that's where we do need these strengthened partnerships. So I am going to have our mental health lead, Michelle, speak a little bit further about some of those external connections we are making.
Thank you. So for example, we have as a board, we've had a long-standing, strong collaborative partnership with public health. And just as recently as 2 weeks ago, at an administrator breakfast, where administrators came with school-assigned CYC and social work, we were sharing together resources related to student well-being, and whole class learning was one example. In our meetings with public health, they know and understand the value of mental health promotion and youth engagement. It is one of their priority or two of their priority areas, and so that collaboration has been longstanding and will continue to be longstanding. At that principal breakfast, it was outlined to admin how our department supports this work and how public health supports them in doing this work. We also look to our community partners. They have educational workshops, they have educational programs, they can do some small group work of a psychoeducational nature. And so whether it's those agencies reaching out to us to offer those services, or it's us reaching out to them, we go through the process of the external partnership review, and in a number of cases, we enter into a partnership agreement with those agencies so that those learning resources related to mental health and well-being can be made available to our students. Just to build further on what Dean was mentioning around the, Superintendent Barnes was mentioning related to right time, right care with our lead agency. Very fruitful discussions. They provide a number of mental health promotion, learning opportunities for young people, children and youth. And we're in active conversations about, can we bring those into the board? So can you offer them during the school day as a way to reduce barriers for young people to receive service? We just think, again, it's a great example of the collaborative nature that's existing within our community, for which we are grateful.
Just wanted to follow up with a comment. I know we all talk about the importance of destigmatizing mental health, and through my own personal observations, I think your team should be very proud of the work that you're doing, and I want to commend you for attaining that goal. It is very evident that during Senate discussions, senators are very open and talk about mental health and their own personal experiences. And when we go into schools, I see that in action as well, and I see the artwork that supports their peers. So we're certainly, I think your work is starting to bear fruit, and of course, it takes a great collaboration from everybody to be of like mind. But again, thank you very much.
The next speaker is Trustee Baxter.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you for that presentation. It was excellent. I just wanted to ask about the slide that had the results from the school principal survey. It indicated that principals shared that 74% of CYCs and 54% of teachers are using their own materials for whole class learning versus Second Step or My HDSB or the other resources that were listed. And I was just wondering, how are those other materials tracked and vetted by the board? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. So our CYCs are provided with a number of resources that are recommended that they use in the work that they do. Primarily it's whole class learning, but it may also be small group or in a few cases individual work. So our managers are very involved in terms of vetting and looking through those resources. A number of our CYCs are also involved in looking at those resources. So I think sometimes when we say CYCs are using their own resources, it might be that the principal was unaware that those have been board approved resources. Teachers using their own resources, I think, might be the same. We certainly are mindful that we want all of our staff to be looking at the materials to ensure that they're culturally relevant and responsive, identity affirming, and we know that there's a number of our admin procedures that support each and every one of us as staff members to ensure that that's what we're doing and we're using.
And next speaker is Robbie.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate this arm of work. My question is, observing over the last period of time, we have pretty good data that not in Halton, but across North America, we're seeing declining mental health among adolescents. I'm less familiar with the data among younger children. At the same time, we're seeing an explosion of work on mental health at the individual level. And it is possible that absent this, it would be even worse. But there's a big question for me that arises of, are we intervening at the right spot? Is this what is actually going to make a difference to our youth's mental health? And I'm wondering if we have any data around that. You're providing pretty good data about those who are able to observe skills being implemented. But if we were going to see improving mental health from our intervention, then we should be seeing intervention schools trending differently than non-intervention schools. Have we done any of that analysis? is there any way to look at, okay, what actually moves the needle on how the students' well-being and mental health?
So I think to your first question, what I would share is our phrase is that mental health promotion, whole class learning, is necessary for all, but not necessarily sufficient for some or for a few. So when we think about, for example, a young person who's really struggling with their mental health, if they're returning to a classroom environment where it's not safe to talk about mental health, where there's no practice related to stress reduction or coping, where they're not encouraged to be aware of their signs of distress, when there's not a calming kit available to them, that young person is going to struggle even more in that classroom environment. So we have the belief, and there is research to indicate, that this Tier 1 intervention is an essential foundation. But for some of our young people who struggle more, they need additional clinical interventions, whether they're provided in a tiered approach through the school board and or through the community. Your next question about connecting results and indication. I think we're just in early stages of trying to grapple with that data in a more informed way. I think that's something that certainly our team has talked about with the research department about looking at more closely.
Thank you.
Quick follow-up.
Yes, you may.
Particularly with the research department present on your panel right now, I would love to hear if there's thoughts of possibility of being able to examine some of these outcome-based effects of the interventions we're undertaking.
Well, in terms of whole class mental health and well-being learning, the schools that we've studied, or the schools that opened their doors to us as a pilot project, we don't have any quantitative indicators, so to speak. But the principals of those schools did notice that, again, there is a correlation but not causation here, but they did notice that with the introduction of the whole class learning, the amount of instances of students coming into the office has decreased. The amount of calls to some of the external agencies and partners has decreased, and that students are just able to spend more time in the classroom in some schools in which that behavior was deemed somewhat problematic in the previous years. So those are just, I would say, some of the qualitative indicators that were reported by those principals. We do have our Have Your Say data that we do almost every year, or in the last iteration it was every second year. And so those are more kind of quantitative indicators of entire schools. We haven't connected that to whole class instruction and learning, but we could look into making a particular connection with specific schools and the outcomes on individual indicators that we do have your say. Again, that's just a proposal. It hasn't been done formally yet.
Trustee Gray.
Thank you very much. I think and through the chair, at the very beginning of your presentation today, I think you talked about how it's important for students to practice the skill set and so on and so forth. How are we reaching out to parents to have their support in knowing what the students are learning in class and how they can reinforce that in the home base?
Certainly within our pilot schools, we saw that the classroom teachers were reaching out to provide information directly to parents about here's the learning that we've been doing in class this week. We've also seen schools provide that in a whole school newsletter. We've also heard some anecdotal from students that they're going home and they're practicing these things, or they're sharing with their caregivers and loved ones, and we're excited about that. I think it's part of the stigma reduction. I think it indicates excitement and interest in the content and in the material. really allowing for very different kinds of conversations with our loved ones.
Thank you very much.
And our last speaker, Student Trustee Ho.
Through the chair, thank you so much for this presentation. I know we worked together in the past, and as someone who's like quite passionate about mental health, what really struck me about kind of the data that you presented was especially seeing, you know, more students who usually like don't speak during class or feel stigmatized or kind of afraid now being able to access these mental health resources. So on this, I want to ask, because I'm kind of new to the like whole class mental health strategies, I want to ask what some of these like look like specifically within classrooms, as well as what you think could be done to help improve, you know, student engagement in these resources generally. Because speaking with like many students, especially this month, it seems like a lot of them struggle with mental health not because they don't feel like the teacher will support them, but rather they just don't feel comfortable or they don't choose to speak out. So again, like maybe what are some strategies schools can implement, and also like myself as like a friend or a peer can implement to kind of encourage someone who might be struggling to seek engagement instead of, you know, walking alone or choosing to like stress about it in solitude.
Thank you for sharing your personal experience. I think when we do that, we make it easier to talk about these things. So I appreciate that you did that. Thank you. So we do it in a couple of different ways. So sometimes there is explicit instruction. There's a lesson plan. There's some explicit learning. Students are engaged in the learning. They're encouraged to practice a skill. They're encouraged to think about how this relates to their life. There's also an initiative that we're really excited about, with much credit to members of the Youth Advisory Committee. So this year, we are having our CYCs and our social workers provide mental health literacy and help-seeking presentations in every one of our grade 7 and grade 8 classrooms. And it was our students who helped develop the content for that. And they were very clear about, this is what we want you to be teaching to our grade 7 and 8s, and this is how we want you to be delivering that material. So I think it's with these kinds of things in mind, that notion of explicit, intentional, in the context of a relationship, youth engaged, youth friendly, youth focused, that we're going to do this work really well.
Thank you. I just have to say your last comment there about how this was co-constructed with student voice at the core. I love that because nothing about us without us, right? And thank you for all the hard work you're putting into this. I appreciate it very much. Thank you. We are now up to items under Section 3, our consent agenda. For approval, we have the Halton District School Board minutes from our meeting on September 10th. For receipt, we have our outstanding action items, board report schedule, policy and governance procedure review schedule, approved minutes of the Committee of the Whole from June the 12th, and request for school renaming annual report. We also have correspondence from the Toronto District School Board, and I'll read the motion. Be it resolved that the HDSB approves the consent agenda and receive the information items for October 1, 2024. Trustee Ahmed, would you make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make the motion.
Trustee Baxter, would you second this motion?
Yes, please.
Are there any items that need to be pulled for discussion? Trustee Rocha.
Through you, Chair, if I could pull the requests for school naming annual report.
Are there any other items to be pulled? Please go ahead, Trustee Rocha.
Through you, I appreciate the report being written because it is part of the GP. I guess my question or comment is perhaps to all the trustees as to what value does this report add for the public. I know we talked about it recently, and it's about transparency to the public, but at the end of the day, what has the public learned? But absolutely nothing other than what they already knew. So Case in point, total number of schools that we've received requests for, 1. The public knows because a board report came. And the other part of this report is how many reports, school naming requests do we get, but that aren't viable. Well, even if we told the public that we got 10 requests, we're not telling them which schools we got requests for. So at the end of the day, to me, this is a make work report, and there's no value added for the public. So as trustees, I would like us to consider removing this report from the governance procedure that asks for this report to be written. So perhaps I'll defer to you, Chair Collard, as to when can that conversation happen to expunge this report from the GP if it's the will of the rest of the trustees.
Trustee Rocha, you will be very happy to know that in the latest iteration of the GP, as we discussed last week's governance document review standing committee meeting, we're considering removing it. Of course, it has to be passed by trustees, but right now it's struck.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Seeing no other items to be pulled, are there any objections to approving the consent agenda? Seeing none, the consent agenda is approved by unanimous consent. We are now up to section 4, items for ratification action. Our action items for October 1st, 2024, 4.1.1, trustee honoraria, report 24122, submitted by Superintendent Nagoy. That be it resolved that the Board of Trustees approve trustee honoraria effective November 15, 2024, as noted in Appendix A of the trustee honoraria policy. Trustee Daniele, would you make this motion?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Trustee Rocha, would you second this motion?
I second.
Trustee Superintendent Nagoy, would you like to speak to this report?
Thank you for the chair and to all trustees. This is the annual calculation of the trustee honoraria, and Appendix A will be updated on the website once approved by trustees. As with the prior year, the only change is the enrollment being updated. So there's a slight change between the last year's honoraria and this year to the tune of about 1,700 in aggregate. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Superintendent Nagoy? Seeing none, please cast your votes. Oh,
Yes.
I don't see any topics. I think we'll have to do this by a show of hands because there are no topics loaded on my machine. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
And any opposed? Thank you, that passes unanimously. Hopefully we can get that fixed. Thank you very much, Superintendent Nagoy. The next item up is 4.1.2, Trustee Code of Conduct, Code of Ethics, Report 24123, submitted by the Governance Document Review Standing Committee. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees approve the revised Trustee Code of Conduct as appended to this report. Trustee Bryden, would you move this motion?
Yes, I would.
Trustee Zhang, would you second this motion?
Yes, please.
Trustee Bryden, would you like to speak to this report?
When we brought revisions to the Code of Ethics previously, trustees noted some concern around 6.5, upholding the spirit of the, at the time it said to be bound by the spirit of the Code of Ethics, as the Code of Ethics was specifically written for staff. So we proposed a small amendment to say uphold the spirit and make a little more clear that this is, the intent is to honor the spirit as trustees. Everything within that Code of Ethics is entirely reasonable. but we are not officially bound by it. So that's the wording we've proposed here.
Are there any questions for Trustee Bryden? Seeing none, I'm going to, Trustee Rocha.
Through you, Chair. It was me who made the comment last time about item 6.5 and being bound to the Code of Ethics. And so although I do appreciate the wording being softer, I still have an issue with us, this policy being specifically listed, because there are a lot of policies that we are, what's the word? Uphold the spirit of a lot of our policies, but yet none of those other policies are listed in our Code of Conduct. So my personal preference would be to remove it entirely, only because to me it doesn't make sense to have it there. And the other point is a lot of the content of the Code of Ethics is already contained in our own Code of Conduct. So to me, it's a bit of duplication. So my preference is still to remove that line item completely. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Rocha. And seeing no other speakers, there's still the glitch in the system, so we're going to do this again by show of hands. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Trustee Shuttleworth, is your hand up? Okay, thank you. And all opposed? Thank you. That passes, but not unanimously. Trustee Rocha voted against. Moving on in our agenda. We're now up to 4.1.3, appointments to committees and other roles, governance procedure, report 24124, submitted by Chair Collard. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees adopt the amendments to the appointments to committees and other roles governance procedure as outlined in report 24124, and I so move. Trustee Amos, would you second this motion?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. I will now pass the gavel to speak to this report.
Go ahead, Chair Collard.
So these items were already passed into effect by the motions quoted in the report. This report merely closes the loop on the documentation, and if you have any questions, please let me know.
Are there any questions for Chair Collard on this report? Trustee Rocha.
Sorry, I'm not sure if my question, I might be called out of order. I do have a question about the GP, not necessarily the changes made, but to the GP. So can I ask it now, or should I wait till the end of the board meeting?
Trustee Rocha, given that it pertains to, it's not pertaining to the motion, how about you ask it at trustee questions for clarification? Thank you. And next speaker, Trustee Zhang.
Thank you, through Chair. So every year we have appointment to the committee, and we have new members. So I would like to have a more review of this committee, this report, and this new policy, because sometimes we could have a new members maybe have a conflict of interest to the committee or the board. So we need to set some rules for that. So that's why I suggest to defer this policy, this vote. Thank you.
Trustee Collard, do you want to respond?
Yeah, conflict of interest falls under different policies. This is not a new GP. This GP merely is adding the new standing committee. It is not about conflict of interest. You would find that under the trustee code of conduct and the code of ethics and those types of documents. If you would like to engage in some conversation about conflict of interest, I'm sure that we could arrange for some PD on that, perhaps through the trustees PD planning standing committee at some time in the future. Would that be helpful to you?
Okay, this is not okay. I will review some other GP and policies because there's some policies are related to each other. So maybe this is already covered in another one. So I'll
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing any other speakers, so I'll pass the gavel back to Chair Collard.
Okay, so again, by show of hands, all those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to 4.1.4, timeline for delegation request, report 24125, submitted by the Governance Document Review Standing Committee as well as Trustee Rocha. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees approve the revised communicating with trustees and delegating the board governance procedure as appended to this report. Trustee Bryden, would you make this motion?
Yes.
Trustee Rocha, would you second this motion?
Yes.
Trustee Bryden, would you like to speak to this report?
This speaks to the concern of our timelines having been moved and Tuesday night meetings. So now it only requires 1 day's notice. As flagged in the report, this does mean that if we have a holiday before a meeting, we may not see notice until the morning of the meeting. So that does have knock-on effects in terms of being able to notify the public about upcoming delegations. I want to thank Trustee Rocha in particular for flagging an element in the appendix that had not been aligned in the first draft and was cleaned up in the revised agenda that went out.
Is there any debate? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Thank you. And any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. We are now up to Section 5, Communication to the Board, and we have no items for information this evening, so we will go straight to the Director's report.
Thank you so much, Chair Collard, and good evening, everyone. We are 1 month into the school year. It's already October, and we're off to a great start. I do believe that our schools, all of our staff members, our superintendents, and everyone involved have really been very collaborative and supportive of all our students and our families. And so I'm grateful for the work that everyone has put in to get us off to this wonderful start. We have the EQO results. Grateful for the team that has shared with us tonight through the Math Achievement Action Plan. You will note it's perhaps a perennial question. One wants to ask, how are we doing in math? It's always the indicator that seems to lag behind the others. And so we do have a plan working through our team to support our schools. And it's a provincial challenge, we know, perennially, but one that we're committed to and look forward to doing so. We are, however, proud of our team and the work that they have done and continue to support them to do better. So that's always our goal, is continuous improvement, and so we strive towards that each and every year. Calling all 3-year-olds to the open house. This has got to be one of the cutest things in the board every year. So I look forward to this later in the fall. And so in all our 5 municipalities, we have a site that's set up for students, parents. So we encourage everyone in the community. If you have young ones, we have exciting learning happening in our kindergarten classes, so bring them out. Halton Water Festival. We had hundreds of elementary students participating in that festival last week in Milton. And so we say congratulations to all our students and our parents and our staff. It was great to bring elements of our multi-year plan and environmental leadership, mental health and well-being into focus. A number of our students were recognized by the mayor's office in Oakville, and so we're indeed proud of our students. For a group of students from White Oaks, led by grade 12 student Cheyenne Azim, whose proposed project involved using drones to identify vegetation and monitor urban forest health. Also, we have another group from White Oaks, grade 11 student Stephanie Van Rosen, who used the grant to create a climate awareness and education game, and a group from Post Corners, led by Principal Beth Hudson, who will take on a variety of waste reduction, active transportation, and indoor gardening projects. So we say congratulations to these students and staff who are showing indeed leadership in environmental sustainability. We have a number of staff members who have been recognized. HDSB teacher Elise Bryan, Seguin Nalsock receive awards from the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario for recognition for their work in the profession. And so Elise is a teacher at Sam Sharrett, and we also have Seguin is a learning resource teacher with our board. So he received the 2024 International Humanitarian Award, which is presented annually to EDFO members for outstanding service in supporting students and children in our global community. So we say congratulations to them, and that ends my report for this evening.
Are there any questions for Director Ennis this evening? Trustee Bryden.
Since I used my earlier question on our math side to grill our team, I would like to use this one to lift up our team. I went prodding through the EQAO results a little bit myself as they came out last week. And when you look at the grade 9 math results, our level 4 achievement, top level achievement, has nearly doubled in 2 years with no reduction in level 3. All of those, it's a distribution, right? If level 4 goes from 9% to 17%, level 3 stays flat, that means all of the reduction is in level 2 and level 1. Our students below the provincial standard, that level has dropped by about a quarter in 2 years. And that is a phenomenal testament to the work that was talked about earlier in the evening in supporting our students in making sure that math learning has bounces back from whatever was lost during the pandemic. So thank you to everyone in our schools, in the central supports, and in right through leadership.
Thank you, Robbie. Seeing no other speakers, do we have any committee updates tonight? Seeing no committee updates, do we have an OPSPA update?
Thank you very much through the chair. I pretty much sent an OPSA update today out based on the Friday night and Saturday meetings that I attended. And I think it's pretty clear in those reports that I shared with everyone earlier today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now up to 5.6, trustee questions of clarification. Trustee Zhang.
Thank you. I have a question. So, because now we have a lot of PD, and every month we have a PD session to learn a lot of things, and actually we need to learn more. I have a question. Because we in the school there's a lot of PD as well, and sometimes the school board invites the external presenters to the school to teach something not related to the course, so related to some other knowledges. So, is it possible to invite the local trustee as a guest to attend those the PD sessions? Because we cannot just rely on the PD session monthly PD session here, because I don't think it's enough. We need to learn a lot of new knowledges. Thank you.
Director Ennis, would you care to respond to that?
I'm sorry, I was a little bit distracted, but Trustee Zhang, just to clarify, you're asking if trustees can attend staff PD?
Yes, in school, some external presenters, if they have some PD sessions, so I think it's valuable to learn. So this is just optional if the school can also invite the local trustees. This will not go to everywhere, just the local trustees if possible.
Thank you for the question, Trustee Zhang. I certainly appreciate the continuous commitment to learning. I do believe, however, that having trustees in the room with staff changes the dynamic. And so I would respectfully ask that trustees honor staff to learn in a way that will be most comfortable for them. And certainly, as you saw tonight and at other times, we're always ready and available to provide additional learning for trustees.
And Trustee Rocha.
Yeah, so I have two questions. One, something just jumped at me when we had the principal from Limehouse saying how thankful he was. So what happened at Limehouse was tragic. Luckily, it had a happy ending. But I'm looking at it from a board perspective. When there is an incident such as this, where there's a fire, maybe there's a flood, maybe there's, I don't know, something bad happens. Are there procedures? Is there a recovery plan that the board follows so that the recovery process is faster? And the reason I ask is because as I'm listening to all the people that were thanked, did we need to go to that extreme in reaching out to so many different people? So is there a plan in place as to, okay, there's a fire, here are your next steps, here's who you go to, here are the grants you can apply for, something that could be helpful to the administration and to the board?
Thank you for the question, Trustee Rocha. Certainly we are grateful for all of the supports that we got, and as Principal Jones mentioned, this is not just internal thanks. Many of his thanks were the community, and so we are grateful for their generosity in serving our students and their community. I turn to Superintendent Ngoy or Godet in terms of our response to these kind of emergencies.
Thank you. And through the chair, there is no procedure in terms of what grants to apply. So certainly what we do is connect with facilities, connect with our insurance adjuster first to determine what the situation is, what was destroyed, what is needed, and then based on that, everybody comes together. So there is a role across the different departments, from library to resources to furniture to whatever has to be replaced. Could be specialized equipment, IT equipment, and that's how that evolves. So it comes from a very quick assessment at the beginning of what was destroyed, what cannot be recovered, what can be cleaned and restored, and we go from there. In terms of the community's involvement, that certainly will depend from the situation to situation. Our foundation, HLF, is always going to be one great partner to reach out to in these situations. But the community itself, that may change from different incidents.
Yeah, sorry, maybe I should have asked this a different way. So we have, the school board has disaster recovery plans in place, like a checklist, like here's what needs to be done.
So for the chair, we do have a disaster recovery plan, but it's for main systems for when we get shut down. It is not meant to be for so something like this. We do have certain things in place where we have to relocate them, find a site that works, ensure that they have what they need to continue learning. So from that perspective, but in terms of what needs to be, which other departments need to be involved to restore the site, that will depend on the situation.
And if I could offer, when we have major incidents, so we've had this issue with a fire, we've had a roof collapse, very different experiences, but tragic, and So, there is an emergency response team that gets together and, triages and figures out who best to call and what the next steps are, and making sure that we do include everybody. So I wouldn't say there's an explicit checklist. It's more, call all hands on deck and let's problem solve this and make sure that we're contemplating and collaborating with everybody that needs to be at the table so we get to the best solution.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
I
thank you
did have
very
a
much.
second question.
Oh,
If
go ahead,
there's-
yeah.
I don't know if there's anyone else on the speakers list, though. No? Okay. So my other question through you, Chair, it has to do with the appointments to committees and other roles, and it was by us approving it that it triggered something. So in November, that's when every trustee expresses interest in their committees and roles for the upcoming year. So between now and November, will we be getting a description of all the committees that will be available for the upcoming year? And will we be looking at how many trustees and alternates are part of each committee?
I'd be happy to put that together.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, now we will vote to go into private session. Can I ask for a motion from Vice Chair Oliver?
I move that we move into private session.
And would you care to second that, Trustee Zhang?
Yes, please.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Hi.
Thank you. That is unanimous. We are now in private session. Thank you and welcome back to public session. The business of our meeting this evening has been exhausted. Obviously, so am I, and I declare this meeting adjourned.